Today, I am proud to present something special. Ilse Gort gave me permission to make a video where I talk about her art. In my previous videos, we appreciated her art of Relic Slot and Springmane Servant, but going in depth is always a little personal. Therefore, I want to make a small note that for all of these videos, I will choose artists whose art I personally appreciate. I also promise to always show these videos to them to make sure that I am not in any way criticizing someone that I am not a professional at. Criticizing others' art is not fun anyways, but appreciating it and showing what you could see in it could be. This is to say, please do not go and criticize art without the artist's permission. With that said, Ilse Gort is an amazing artist who shapes the world of magic with her magical creatures. Some of these creatures might seem small in stature, but they always tell us a story about their environments. Other creatures are not that small, but are still made appealing in a way. While there are some really cute creatures made by Ilse, there are also just those with a very pronounced attitude. One thing I found is that these animals always shine in a light in some way. Let me explain. Let me try to explain what I see with Icoria's Glade Muse. Not Moose, but Muse. M-U-S-E. This majestic animal is a muse to the eye, with its pattern and long, very detailed hair. They watch over their glade with eyes that seem soft, contemplative and calm. They have huge horns, but seem to find no reason to use them. In a world where mutation is a common, it is impressive for a beast to be this majestic. This is a 3-mana 2/4, a chunky yet peaceful stat line. This moose draws you cards whenever an opponent oversteps their boundaries with instants out of their turn. We can see why because of Ilse's art. Because this moose inspires us to be calm. Like I said, there is a lot of story in the light too. The most pronounced is the difference between the soft, shadowed, cool, breezy grass at the forefront and the warm afternoon sun that has been warming our friend for most of the day. Only now that the sun is waning, does this majestic being raise his head to watch over another peaceful day. Action will come when necessary. Okay, but then the rest. Because we can see an element of the magical crystals in this grass, but we see it in the back on this tree too. Here the light seems less calm, but even more important as this misty forest gives me the feeling that I might never find this mystical creature. This is true according to the flavor text too. Rage can be heard throughout the world, but wisdom comes at a whisper. By Riel the Everwise. Another thing that we must appreciate is that Ilse is associated with cats. As a cat dad, I have to appreciate this. So let us take a look at another use of light. One that is still calming but a little bit more than that. Prowling Felidar is a cat with a famous story, known everywhere. Its flavor says, on occasion, Felidars leave meaty gifts outside the tents of explorers they consider worthy. This is a famous story because we have all heard about cats that leave these gifts. Only true cat lovers can imagine the faces of these cats. Only true cat artists can translate them naturally. Note that Felidars are usually wild creatures, although they can be tamed. Wild creatures that can live for hundreds of years. These are wise creatures, yet they play as we can see from their knowing eyes. They are strong as we can see from the front legs and the way this cat is leaping. We can imagine that this cat's hind legs will soon retract forward, their whole body crumped up to take another leap. We can see that these planes show no shadow, but still the shadow is used to come from the standing paw. For me, This made me not look at it first and forced me to look towards the reptilian claw. Then we look at the eyes of this Felidar and then down to their body. We are guided because the scales of the claw are more pronounced than the brushy fur of the Felidar, which are then more pronounced than the soft clouds and floating rocks of Zendikar. This Felidar's leap is strong, but controlled, which we do not see from its stance, but the fact that their body perfectly aligns with the clouds and rocks above. This is a Felidar on a mission to bring an adventurer a reptilian claw and then run away. We don't want to be seen bringing these gifts. On to the creature that made me realize that a sloth should be the mascot of this channel. It is Relic Sloth, who is a 4/4 vigilance protector of the Lorehold students. They go on dangerous adventures through relics in order to find lessons about the history on Arcavios. Here they need a slow and careful steed to help them on their road. Relic Sloth also has menace, making this a protector that is probably very nice and calm, but needs to look menacing. With large tusks and his face set angrily, I can very much relate. I also seem angry very often and people always ask whether I am grumpy. But inside I always feel rather calm. Again, the sun has a great role here. It highlights that this massive beast is the only one tall enough to reach the sun's light, which tells us that it is evening and that this valley is surrounded by mountains. It shines on a statue to show us why we stopped here. It shines on the packing on top of the beast to show us more of their purpose. It highlights the star arc in the back because these are such an important theme. And then we look up and see this beautiful fading sun fading into a night sky with soft, small specks of stars to show us that it is time to go home after a long day of work. We even see one of our friends wiping the sweat off, while our Relic Sloth is very ready to move. With only having seen 3 of Ilse's creatures, we already are introduced to 3 worlds, and for me personally, I have learned a lot from these cards about these worlds. Let us go back to Ikoria for a moment, because as the world of monsters, this plane is great for Ilse as a storyteller. Flourishing Fox is a 1-mana 1/1 that flourishes whenever you cycle a card. Flourishing means getting a +1 counter in this case. Cycling on Ikoria means surviving in new biomes, but Ilse shows us that surviving is not enough for some species. Some species are not meant to dominate their territories. Some are smart and want to coexist. These species need even more ecological wealth. The flavor of this card says, Day 1, these fox pups have really taken to me. Day 4, big, so big, need additional security, by Jonald. These creatures now seem larger than I thought. The puppies are really small. I first wondered where these guys had found such a small stone cavern. But then I looked at how much bigger the left fox is. This is genius positioning because we first look at the fox with the more pronounced colors. It is standing with its chest out, looking with these small, smart eyes once again. Its tail is pointing towards the larger wolf. At first I thought these were mom and dad. Still, when I think about it, the flavor says that in 3 days this fox got so much bigger. So what probably happens is that this is the same fox every time. As a pup, as a proud fox, and then as a large older hound that is leaving its nest. Or so it seems to me. Especially since the older fox is so much more faded out. I am glad these foxes are flourishing, and we do not have to be sad for this old fox. When we talk about regal art from Ilse, we cannot brush past Squirrel Sovereign, because this one is literally a king. This 2/2 is a mechanical lord in that it gives squirrels +1/+1. For rule of the Aldering Forest, Numstill stole the acorn from Nestwind, who stole it from Branky, who stole it from Lightroot, who stole it from leaf ball who stole it from dark fur. I told you the flavor because I like these scroll names, but also because this scroll does not look like a numbstill. Again we see these beautiful eyes, and yet we know that this person is a thief. With its small pointy head and wing-like horned ears, this scroll wears a crown in all senses of the word. Again we see the light coming in through this tree, and I think it is great to use such a small branch for this scroll. The positioning here is great too, as the scroll hides behind this tree, giving us a little more of a mischievous feeling about supposed numbstill. The speckled particles make the forest seem silent, but in the eyes of this monster we can see that a storm is brewing. The more I look at this art, the more I realize how evil scrolls are in this world. What is more regal than this reprint from Onslaught, where before the card set showed us a priest that used his family. We are now more on the nose with our thoughts about hierarchy. Not only is this art about werewolves resurrecting their kin, there is even some darkness in the air tonight, and the villagers get told to lock their doors in the flavored text. Then we see the lighting again, one source from the ground from which a werewolf is now jumping up with its arms spread in domination as his subjects bicker. The light from the ground also shows in the veins on the wolf, and the werewolf, so connected to the moon, forces us to see this massive moon over such a desolate landscape. It is important to know the time frame, where many people feel repulsion against hierarchy and against the fathers who stand or float at the top. Then we see that the landscape is green, where these wolves live, and more desolate away from them, letting us choose whether we see this picture as evil or that maybe this is just life restarting again. But then we see the eyes of this wolf and know that being a king is not always a good thing. In a way we are shown that being a leader or being proud can be fine, but like the squirrel and like the father werewolf, we can relish in our power, sure, but we should always also care. I think this art is beautiful in that way of showing us the two sides. The evil in the eyes, the loyalty in his people. The darkness that is siphoned from the surroundings, and the green of nature on our side. Of course, artists do not just make art with one trick. Whenever anyone builds anything, they use all skills, preferences and experience they have at the same time. The true art comes when you are able to translate as much of yourself in an art piece as possible. Therefore, we have seen some themes before. As I said, Ilse makes a lot of magical creatures, but the hard part comes when you try to use your experiences and studies of a certain creature for your art. These magical creatures serve a purpose and need to be logical in their environment. Springmane's servant is an elk, but it also serves to tell us about these star arcs that we have seen before with Relic Sloth. Servant's flavor text says, servants feed on the mana-rich plants around the star arcs, imbuing their bodies with extraordinary grace and vitality. Knowing this, we can now look at the art a bit better. Of course, our Springmane is at the forefront. The light again accentuates the point of the proud features of this regal animal. Its horns feature branches that resemble its environment, but we do not see any flowers around. This servant is fabulous because it fits in its environment. The butterflies are definitely happy with these otherwise sparse flowers. When we look deep in the eyes of this servant, we do doubt whether it is happy or just okay with its status. I could imagine your question of, can't everyone just think of cool creatures and make them look nice? Well, you could maybe do that, but it is way harder to be creative and put your creativity to practical use. With Ilse's art for Strixhaven, she single-handedly made the lore of star arcs in art form. At least for me she did. Because we saw the relic sloth stopping by it, the arc gave the servant its majestic horns and beautiful energy, and Kelpie Guide is intrigued by them too, as we see here. Kelpies are drawn to paradoxes, which is why they are the ideal companion for Quandrix mages. Here we see them guiding a Quandrix mage towards at least 3 of these arcs, making me even more intrigued to what these do. Well, Kelpie Guide is a swimming dog-like creature that guides students towards confusing places. We see it look around here as it wants the Quandrix mage to follow it. Perhaps it wants to puzzle the conundrum out with his new friend. Again, the eyes of this Kelpie look questioningly and wise, as if it is curious to see what the student would think of this puzzle. But still it is wise enough to perhaps already know the answer. The two also seem to have emerged from this shallow water. Perhaps the student was riding her steed over the lake. Again, the sun gives us the feeling that something new is starting. Perhaps this is a new friendship. Here we see the art that seems from Ikoria, but it is really not. This is the snowy plain of Kaldheim, where the gods might sometimes give creatures boons when the creature pleases them. This wolf got surprised by her gift, but then she started to fly. Her packmates were envious. This is perfectly flavored for Kaldheim. The wolves are white or light grey for the protection in the snow. The wolf got a boon seemingly randomly from a god that was either pleased with its fervor or that just wanted to play around. Then we think about the people of Kaldheim and that they would react exactly the same. They would be shocked and then would boast exactly like this wolf. Their friends would be curious or envious like the wolves on the left. Then we see the godly theme of the northern light just above these wings. The light shines down on the wolves and the pups hide beneath their parents. We know who is the pack leader now. Hopefully her pack will be able to follow. As a last note on magical creatures, I want to look at one that seems easy to think of, but really is not. Because when you think of an owlbear and you see this art, you might think, seems logical, but it really is not. There are many fan-made versions of this animal, where we often just see a bear with an owl face, and those are the best ones. Other information we have is that this is a creature with great senses, claws and a beak. It is big and strong, so it does need the body of a bear. But nowhere else have I seen a bear with this perfect amount of feathers. The bear is hunched, which seems unnatural for a bear when you think of it, but because of our attention that is taken by the light fur on the owl's face and its penetrating eyes, again, we do not notice. From here we see a menacing angry claw and then the feathers on the back. The reason this creature needs to be hunched over is because, like this, we can truly appreciate its strong arms, and it just feels more like an owl. And the broken trees in the background do not seem broken, but we intuitively know that this bear could rush through these trees, while the creature is really standing still. So is this easy? Not at all. It is even another masterpiece of controlled creativity. Back to now familiar grounds, we see a seemingly Icorian cat, although this is not certain. This canopy stalker pounces its prey and forces it in a fight. The forest cover offers shade, shelter and an increased risk of sudden death for these prey. This is great for an artist that is so great with light and especially light through trees. This stalker is made for Ilse. We see the light accentuate its red manes, its freckles, its hungry mouth and the branch it stands on so that we know its position. The rest of it is hidden in the dark, as the flavor suggests. Ilse even thought of giving the cat one huge claw on each paw, so that it could grip the branches really well. The deer beneath is looking proud and straight ahead. The other one looks around as it feels danger. The cat patiently waits, eager to pounce. This position is really smart, to think of how we get to see the cat as the main protagonist of the story, but still learn very easily how this story will end. Another necessary and therefore brilliant positioning. This time the packmate of Sarulf. We have seen another packmate from Godheim take flight today. This time Sarulf took the greatness in a massive manner. Sarulf, the Cosmos Monster, the Dread Wolf and the Realm Eater, has outgrown its pack in massive proportions. Sarulf has been captured and is now forced to roam the cosmos, which we see up above. Sarulf's light might actually be the one shining next to the World Tree's branch. This is why we have to see this wolf from a little below it, so that we could see the lights up above from its lost friend and the cold trees beneath, in which the pack still hunts. Sarulf's light, meanwhile, perfectly shines on our lonely wolf friend here, as we see its cold howl take off towards the cosmos sky. I have 3 more pieces that I want to end off with. The first one is a token. As I said before, Ilse has openly acclaimed to love cats. This one from Zendikar is perfect for that. Notice that the natural cats from Zendikar are huge Valadar, that are wild and untamed. This seemingly tamed cat is just as adventuring. She even takes to her owner by being just as individualistic as the Zendikar people. I think this adventuring cat is the perfect cat token for Zendikari, as she embodies their energy perfectly. And it even shows the hope and freedom these people now experience through these hopeful eyes, and the bright sun shining on her friend. A perfect representation to me of Ilse's style. We have seen simplicity being really complex before in her art, but here Ruxa, the patient professor, shows us this perfectly. This bear druid can return a simple card from the graveyard, is a lord for them, and helps them achieve their goals. This is exactly what Ilse does. She takes a simple creature and then lets them achieve their goals as key partners in the world building. Ruxa wears the complicated robes of Quandrix mages, but this professor still looks square, as a 4/4 shoot. Our bear teacher even looks at their students as if they understand their simplicity and wants them to embrace it. They will let your brilliant simplicity shine, just like Ilse does. Then look at this massive flex. The story in the art is that the bear is patient. We see a devilish drawing on the school board and the fallen paper plane, showing us that these students were mischievous once, but the paper plane has spider webs around it, showing that it has been drawn a long time ago. We even see an amount of crumbled papers in the trash. Still, the student we see is smiling as she focuses on her school work. This teacher has been patient and is now bearing the fruits of it, and we can see this from this seemingly simple piece of art. Now I want to show a last bit of greatness in Search for Greatness, a card where we see Toski touching our friend Sarulf from before. We see Sarulf lowering their head in respect. Notice that Sarulf herself is a massive wolf that grows and therefore has to see Toski's greatness. We instantly know that Toski was the one looking and is now accepting Sarulf as a great creature. We see Toski's still of messages for the gods in the background dominating this piece. The Cosmos Northern Lights embrace these two as ascended beings, and even Toski's small prosthesis is featured. We can only wonder what this moment between two great beings means. But maybe the scroll had a message for Sarulf. Or maybe they grant them power. We do not know, but wondering is just enough for such a beautiful moment. Ilse Gort is an artist that takes something simple, makes it complex, makes it simple again to fit in a small frame, and then makes sure that the piece takes a huge role in the complex world that she helps to build. For me, greatness lies in taking something complex and then making use of it. Ilse often makes blue and green art, and personally I think she fits perfectly in the Quandrix mindset, where the subjects are impossibly complex but made so simple by great minds. Simply astonishing. So if you enjoyed any of this art, please check out Ilse's imprint page, where you can get your own art prints of official Magic the Gathering art. Spice up your room and also show your support towards one of your perhaps new favorite artists.